Welcome to True Crime Chronicles. Is there a circumstance in which a criminal would gladly choose death penalty over life imprisonment? As unbelievable as it may sound, there are prisons all around the world that are filled with unimaginable horrors that you can't believe. And in this video, I'm going to show you 10 of the worst of them. So, take a deep breath, sit back and relax. Number 10. The Black Dolphin Prison. If you ask any Russian you know, they would tell you that life in any Russian jail is extremely difficult. But this high-security Black Dolphin prison redefines what it is for a prison to be difficult. Black Dolphin is one of Russia's oldest prisons, and it got its name from a statue in front of the building that the inmates built themselves. This is odd considering that Black Dolphin is not exactly known for its freedom. In fact, the only way to escape this prison is by dying. This is the fate of every inmate, because only inmates serving life sentences are sent to the Black Dolphin. Black Dolphin houses approximately 700 inmates, all of whom have a murder conviction between them. Black Dolphin is also home to cannibals and the most heinous of criminals that commit assault: psychopaths, violent extremists, and child molesters. 2 prisoners are crammed into one cell that is only 50 square feet in size and has 3 sets of steel doors for security. These cells are monitored around the clock and have guards making rounds every 15 minutes. The prisoners are rarely allowed out of their cells, and when they do, they're blindfolded and made to walk bent over at the waist so that they never get a sense of their surroundings. There is no prison yard and no cafeteria. Inmates only eat meals of soup and bread in their dingy cells. If Afterlife were a jail, Black Dolphin would be a viable contender for the top spot. Number 9. El Ciudad Barrios, El Salvador. Allow me to introduce you to El Ciudad, the most dangerous prison in all of El Salvador. The reason it is so dangerous is because it houses 2 of the world's most notorious gangs, the MS-13 and the Barrio 18 gang. Death often comes without warning if an inmate is not a gang member, and that is why from 2004 to 2015, only gang members were sent to this hellhole. It's not enough to be a member of a gang, and in most cases, they are the least of your concerns, because the living conditions in the prison are so poor, and the prison is so overcrowded that obtaining basic necessities, such as food to eat or a place to lay your head, could easily turn into a fight to the death, with anyone contesting your claim to those resources. Because of the jail's well-deserved reputation for lawlessness and violence, officers are so afraid to enter the facility that gang members now manage the entire correctional system. As a result, the entire prison is under their control. Number 8. Petak Island, Russia. Penitentiary on Petak Island has the reputation of being the Alcatraz of Russia for a reason, and that reason is enough to strike fear into the hearts of Russian citizens. A journey deep within the heart of the Devil Fire Island is known as the Island of the Damned, and its jail, which is located on a small island in the middle of Nosivero Lake, is home to 193 inmates who are all serving life sentences. Unsurprisingly, the inmates are typically the worst of the worst, and each of them is kept in a small 2-man cell for 23 hours every day. Escape is impossible because inmates are not even allowed out of their cell for any reason, and the 1 hour that they are allowed out of lockdown is spent standing in a cage that they can barely pace in. However, the icing on the cake of this terrible reality is that the absence of even the most fundamental sanitation amenities is what differentiates this facility from Black Dolphin. There are no adequate restrooms or toilets anywhere in the building. Prisoners relieve themselves into a steel pail, and they sleep on paper-thin mattresses. Some people have compared the living circumstances on Petak Island to those of a zoo during the winter. This is due to the fact that the island is surrounded by frigid waters, the use of waters that contribute to the demoralization of their prisoners. Number 7. Kwang Prison, Bangkok, Thailand. Bangkok Prison is one of the worst prisons on earth for a very specific reason. Many of its inmates were once tourists, and because the prison facility is so overcrowded, these offending tourists have to cram up in the same space with prisoners on death row, and the offenses that could. Many of the infractions could land you in Kwang are rather minor. Simple mistakes like reading books in public It's dangerous to hang out with more than 5 people at once, and eating a sandwich in public could be enough to send you straight to Kwang. In the first 3 months of their sentence, new inmates are required to wear iron chains. To make matters worse, the food they're served is often infested with maggots, and drinking water is an absolute luxury. But that's not all. Don't think you can just avoid Kwang by being a good citizen or tourist. A couple of years ago, a British man was thrown into jail when a Thai gang jumped him, and even though he lost an eye and suffered severe injuries. Number 6. Gitarama Central Prison, Rwanda. The majorities of facilities on this list suffer from overcrowding, but none of them compare to Gitarama Central Prison in Rwanda, which is currently housing 8,000 convicts, despite having been built with a capacity of only a little more than 1,300. In most cases, finding a place to lie down on the ground is a luxury, and many inmates are made to stand up all day or make a deal with those who have claimed portions of the floor. And it's not like the ground in dispute is some piece of fine real estate. It's damp, and most of the time filled with raw feces. Unsurprisingly, this has led to more complicated issues. It gets even worse than that. There have been several cases of inmates feasting on each other out of hunger, and the cannibalism could be even worse than I just to you, because there is little to no documentation on the activities that take place. Many prisoners have died outright from disease and suffocation, and if you accidentally injure your foot, gangrene would set in and you would either have to cut it yourself, risking death, or watch it fall from your body. However, it gets worse than that. Behind both the bars on the prison windows and the guards who guard them have been indoctrinated to believe that the inmates under their care are below human. In Rwanda's jails, 2,000 people lost their lives in 2013, with the vast majority of those deaths occurring within the confines of Gitarama Central Prison. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Number 5. Kamiti Maximum Security Prison, Kenya. Built in 1954 by its British colonists, the jail was constructed after an old-style colonial system to imprison offenders during a state of emergency imposed in October 1952. This is what makes this prison quickly stand out from the others. It is home to the worst of the worst. Today, it still has its original gallows, and it is even more hellish than it was more than half a century ago. On the one hand, it is overcrowded. A prison that should house 1,200 inmates has almost 3,000 inmates crammed within it. On the other hand, this overpopulation has bred serious viral diseases such as HIV and AIDS, syphilis, tuberculosis, and a whole host of other diseases that normally should be under control. Even worse is the never-ending unrest and corruption that plagues the prison system. Because the prison is the government's preferred dumping ground for political dissidents, the majority of the population is uneducated. This in turn has led to a telephone scam within the prison system, where scores of prisoners defraud innocent Kenyan citizens of their money. Outside the prison walls, Kamiti Maximum Security Prison is a cesspool of chaos, and only the smartest, bravest, and most resourceful prisoners survive. Number 4. Gldani Prison in Georgia. They say the prison is better, and they say the violence has stopped. But that doesn't take away from the terrifying legacy of Gldani Prison. In 2012, a video was leaked by a 35-year-old former prison guard turned whistleblower who filmed the horrors the inmates passed through at the hands of other gods. The video was filmed by a former prison guard who had worked there for 15 years. The video is too graphic to show here, but I can tell you what they did to prisoners and what they had been doing to prisoners for decades. Every night, random inmates were routinely sodomized with broom handles, and one of these was featured in the videos. They were frequently beaten, drowned, their bones purposefully broken, and burned, all at the hands of the sadistic gods. A former inmate will remember that it was institutionalized torture in the 21st century. They tore off my fingernails, fractured my skull, broke my leg bones, ribs, nose, and teeth. I am 43 years old, but I look like an old man. When I walk, I frequently lose my balance, and although they say that conditions in the jails have improved and that torture has been stopped, I highly doubt that you would want to cross-check this information yourself. Number 3. Mendoza's Maximum Security Prison. Pavilion 5 of Mendoza Prison houses the top 90 most dangerous convicts in all of Argentina. This section of the prison is so dangerous that not even God would have the guts to enter it. The guards frequently leave the inmates' meals in predetermined spots outside the door. This might sound slightly cool to some, but don't be fooled. The prison has a serious overcrowding problem. 1,600 convicts are housed within a building that was originally intended to house only 600. There are no beds, so inmates are required to sleep on the floor, where they are often randomly, intensely, and frequently tortured. However, that's not the worst of it. There are no toilets, so inmates are required to urinate in bottles and defecate in plastic bags. There is a literal sewer of garbage, human waste and slime running through the corridors, and conditions have become so intolerable that there are reports that inmates have literally sewed their mouths shut. It still gets worse. The food is filthy, and those who aren't strong, fast, or smart enough to endure often starve to death under what the authorities have come to refer to as mysterious circumstances. Number 2. Diyarbakir Jail, Turkey. Diyarbakir Mass Prison was also at the core of the most violent regime in Turkey in the 1980s and 1990s. Multitudes of Kurdish people, men and women, were made subject to dreadful forms of torture. During that period, this was regarded to be the worst prison in the world. Presently, it holds its rank as second worst. But nothing has changed, and one could even argue that conditions have gotten worse. This is because children are now being held in the same prison as the lowest members of society, and the inmates there are being subjected to various forms of torture, including physical and psychological assault. On the more physically violent side of things, inmates are beaten, violated, maimed, forced to eat excrement, and electrocuted by their genital area. On the more psychologically dehumanizing side of things, it's common practice for inmates to engage in dry fasts as a form of protest against the conditions of their confinement. Unfortunately, the majority of the time, this results in the inmate's death due to starvation. More recently, 4 inmates set fire to their bodies, and later, an inmate set fire to his cell before hanging himself in an act of resistance. Number 1. Camp 22 in North Korea. Camp 22 is not just one prison facility. Rather, it is a series of identity prison camps that stretch the length of North Korea and house up to 200,000 inmates. The few extremely lucky survivors of lynching conditions in the camp have compared the atrocities committed against Jews during the Holocaust. Prisoners routinely go hungry, since it is a part of their everyday lives. Inmates are fed a sludge of cornmeal and cabbage every day for the duration of their existence. In order to avoid dying of malnutrition, prisoners have to add to their diets with rats and insects. Rats became such an essential part of their diet that rodents literally went extinct. If you know anything about the way rats reproduce, you'll know that that is impressive to say the least. Starvation is not a novelty. It is every prisoner's reality. Every year, between 20 and 25% of the people who are incarcerated end up passing away. When the deaths aren't caused by starvation, the prison guards turn the lives of the convicts into a satirical work of horror fiction. Everyone is a potential victim for the penitentiary. Inmates are brutalized as a form of stress relief for the guards, and if a prisoner tries to escape the camp, everyone in their family, even those who are completely ignorant of their attempt to flee, will be brutalized as stress relief to the guards. Infant daughters who are born in the camp are frequently given to dogs in order to teach them to be more vicious. Those who are caught pregnant are typically tied to a tree. The fetus is removed from their stomach and then they are shot. Dying in Camp 22 is the nicest thing that can happen to you. Surviving, on the other hand, entails never-ending agony. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.